Welcome everybody to today's Fire Engineering Google Hangout. I'm PJ Norwood. I'm here in New Haven, Connecticut, and we have a great lineup today. Before we start talking about our topic of high-rise fires, just want to remind everybody that today's show is sponsored by Tincata Fabrics. As we all know, 7 out of 10 of us are wearing turnout gear built by Tincata Fabrics. They are one of the leaders, the pioneers in fire-resistant fabrics, which all started in 1969 when they first started work with Cleveland Fire Department, where they built their turnout gear based out of fire-resistant fabrics. And they're currently the world's leading supplier of inherently flame-resistant fabrics for emergency responders. And something else I've recently learned about them, they have a whole line of station wear. So they're not just building fabrics for turnout gear, they're also building fabrics for station wear. So check out Tincata Fabrics online, Facebook, as well as their Twitter page. Give them a shout out and say hello to them. And also remember, they're made in America. All their fabrics are made and assembled right here in the USA. So we're supporting a company which is built in the United States. A couple other housekeeping things. FDIC is right around the corner. Hot registration is open. Workshop classes are open. Don't forget, these classes sell out. Every single hands-on class will sell out this year. The workshops will probably sell out as well. So the longer you wait, the closer you are to missing your opportunity to seek and attend some of the best training in the United States, whether it's hands-on training or workshop classes. Don't wait, because they sell out every year. We always hear, right, Chief? We always hear, you know, I wanted to take that class, but I couldn't get in. Don't be one of them this year. Register early, sign up for those classes and those workshops now, and especially those hands-on classes, because those always sell out first. Don't forget, we're also approaching the deadlines for the Fire Engineering ISFSI George D. Post Instructor of the Year Award nominations. That deadline is December 31st. So remember, the George D. Post Instructor of the Year Award recognizes individuals for extraordinary accomplishment in fire service training. So if you have that instructor in your life, somebody of your training academy, somebody who's been a mentor and an educator to you over the years of your fire service career, nominate them. Go to FDIC.com, fill out the registration form, and give them an opportunity to win this award that they give out every year, which is an extreme honor. Another deadline that's approaching is January 7th for the Ray Downey Courage and Valor Foundation Award. Another extremely prestigious award. Take the time, look at your crews, look at your companies, look at your firefighters in your department, and see who's gone above and beyond, and see what company has done something where this truly should be recognized at the FDIC stage. And that deadline is January 7th. So January 7th for the Courage and Valor Award, and December 31st for the George D. Post Instructor of the Year Award. Make sure you hit those deadlines as soon as you can, and while you're at it, make sure you register for those classes. So today I'm here in New Haven, Connecticut with Chief Alston and Kevin Riley. We're going to be talking about high-rise fires. And we have Frank Ritchie, Dave Polikoff, and Sam Villani remotely. They're in Montgomery County Training Academy in Maryland. So I'm going to be a student today. In my department, we have a lot of private dwellings. We don't have a lot of high-rise. We only have, one high-rise. Doesn't mean that we're not going to have high-rise fires. So I'm looking to learn a little bit today from some of the experts in high-rise fires. So I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to start with Kevin Riley all the way down to the left here. And let's start the conversation. So Kevin, you and Frank and Chief Alston have been talking about this topic of high-rise fires, and you have some things where you want to start out. So I'm going to start out with you. Then we'll go to Chief Alston, and then we'll turn it over to our friends in Maryland. And I don't want to forget, sitting in the back row there trying to hide is our boy Nick there. That's Nick Ritchie. For those of you who don't know him, follow that man on Twitter. He's becoming somebody or something. So take a look for Frank's son there, Nick, in the background, and let's get the conversation rolling, Kevin.
Okay, great. Thanks again, CJ, for having me, and you're the Chief and Frank. Nice to meet you folks. Basically, as far as an introduction here, information, as we all know, is power. And building pre-plans, the importance of that, and but also at the same time the practicality of being able to check out different high-rises. Some communities or cities have hundreds of high-rises, and just as far as continuity and being able to have basic information about those structures is key to effectively mitigating an incident. So one of the things to focus on, because you could talk literally hours on this subject, and I also want to give the chief an opportunity to elaborate on some of the fire safety plan specifics, is the building information card. And it started in New York City post 9/11, part of the emergency action plan process, which now the plans are combined. Everything other than fire and fire safety plans have kind of merged together. But for continuity, to give residents or office folks in commercial buildings, that's where it started. When prior to the fire department getting to a situation, they were given basic tools as to how to operate or what to do to get a jump on things. So when the emergency responders did get there, the situation was already being handled to a certain degree. But the building information card is key. What it does is a two-sided card, laminated card, that has all the basic components of that structure in it. You know, whether it's where stairwells are located, there's a visual on the other side where, elevator banks are located, what dead shafts,
Blind shafts.
Blind shafts. We were talking about that earlier.
Sure.
But the basic components of well, what stairwells have maybe re-entry floors every 4 floors. But these basic things are all contained just on a two-sided laminated card. Got to get the job going now. And that's extremely helpful when it comes to, as I said, getting a jump on an incident and also being able to direct an incident efficiently. But with that, I hand it off to the chief to elaborate, I guess, on fire
Sure.
safety.
Yeah, Chief, before you get started here, for those of you that don't know, this is Chief Alston. Chief Alston is the new chief of the City of New Haven Fire Department. So, Chief, first, this is your first appearance on our Google Hangout. I know that you're not a fire engineering or Google Hangout or even FE Radio rookie. You've done more of these than I know that I have. So, but first of all, congratulations on the appointment to Chief of New Haven. I know you've had a busy couple weeks here, and hopefully we're not going to have any of these issues with high-rise stuff. You guys have had your hands full, but I know that the membership has been doing a great job here under your command recently. So
Thank you.
Congratulations and welcome to New Haven.
Yeah, I'll dovetail onto that. PJ, thank you so much. And if I hear another siren, I'm going to be running out of here in a hot second because that's just the way it's been. City of New Haven, I didn't come here because they have bad firefighters. I came here because there was an opportunity for a chief officer to work with a fantastic fire department in a wonderful city. And I've gotten a chance to see them work a lot in the last 2 months, including explosions and fires and large scale fires in lightweight constructed buildings. And I want to just dovetail onto 2 things. The one thing that you said about in your community, you may not have high-rise buildings, but in a lot of communities that don't have high-rise buildings, they still have the same challenges. It's access and large numbers of people. So sometimes you may see in a community a lightweight constructed building that runs the block length itself and literally is a high-rise laying on its side. It has everything there, large numbers of persons there, the potential for large loss of property and damage, even in commercials, standpipe solutions, fire department communication systems, all of that. But what Kevin said it also is important too. The building information cards, we got involved in that in my former department in Jersey City, where I came from there with 31 years of experience there. After the '93 bombing in New York, we found out that a lot of businesses and residents that lived in New York looked across the water and said, hey, we can probably move over there. It's cheaper, it's wide open, and we can build there. And so after '93, we saw a large influx of communities and companies coming into Jersey City downtown, rehabilitating and restoring properties down there. We had 20 high rises annually scheduled to be built. And you just saw a city of cranes. In my own battalion, the 1st Battalion, there were 158 high rises. And there were people like Jack Murphy, who introduced us to the Fire Safety Directors Association, of which I'm a member, and Kevin's a member, who talked about fire safety direction, teaching the occupants, the tenants and the building owners, the importance of working with the fire department, providing us that critical reconnaissance and information that allowed us to pre-plan, but also to respond more effectively. The building information cards are phenomenal. We're starting to see them in apps now. There's another company out called First Do Size Up, just looking at one of their solutions, where they gather that aggregate information about buildings and departments by permit, by registration, by variances, by building plans. They give you all of that information. But my foray into it is, as an incident commander responding, what's most important for firefighters responding is not only to protect those citizens, but this is not your traditional fire. We have to look at our tactics. We have to look at water supply in elevated areas. We have to look at safe refuge for areas for our folk. Believe it or not, we adapted some of the tactics and the way we look at fires and high rises from wildland firefighting, the LCES, lookouts, communications, escape routes, and safe harbors. We took those and tried to put them into our tactics so that we can protect our people while we're trying to save others. Something that came out of that program too as well, of the New York departments and fire safety directors moving into Jersey, was the fire safety directors program. We developed the fire safety management program.
Just so you know, Chief, you got another working fire in the city.
Okay, I've got another working fire in the city. So what I'm going to
Just
do,
to give you the
when it
heads
goes
up.
to a second alarm, I'm jumping out of here.
Can you?
Just confirm what type of structure it is, and if it's a high volume structure, I'm out of here. I'm sure everyone in the audience will understand. I'll try to get back. I'll just make this point. You have to train the public, because after the 93 bombing, and unfortunately during the attacks of 9/11, they're not going to be where you expect them to be. We can come up with all of the plans that we can. If we don't practice with people and teach them that the building itself can protect them depending on where they are, if they're not in the places that we're looking for, it causes problems for us, and we may not be able to reach them at the critical times that we need to. If we can actually teach the public to work with us and work through these fire safety management programs, it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. We want to teach them inside the building to match our command structure. We need to know and gain control of those primary energy systems, the elevators, all of those things that are critical for us, that we will be able to take control of that building when the building's on fire and rescue those persons. I'm going to stop talking for a minute so I can monitor this fire. I'm probably going to take off.
Yep, Frank, why don't you guys take over there in
Yeah,
Maryland?
we're good.
We'll let the chief monitor the
He's
situation,
okay.
see what he
Yeah,
has,
he's
and
okay.
we can pick up from there.
Chief, I just want to comment on one of the things when we knew you were coming to the meeting that we were really excited about was your high-rise experience, and we really think that, especially New Haven's high-rise SOP, you're going to really be able to build upon that, and I think we're going to be able to move the department forward. And with Kevin Riley with the emergency action plans, Kevin and I had the opportunity to evacuate a 67-story building in Lower Manhattan, 70 Pine Street, with the high-rise safety directors. And I learned a lot from that experience. And we really need to realize that the people in the building are our partners, and they need to be part of the game plan for the high-rise fire. And it's not always the card or the app. I'd really like to see Connecticut do some legislation on how to better mark these buildings. The fact that we have stairwells that aren't stenciled with either lettered or numbered, that has either a line that you have a scuttle at the top of the stairwell or access to the roof, is something that should be dictated right on a clear stencil. Dave Polikoff, Battalion Chief in Montgomery County, was talking about, well, if you don't have that, they do north, south, east, west. Sam gave directions coming to the academy today, and he said, just go a little bit more south on Scofford School Road. And I looked at Nicholas, I go, which way is south? So I think some kind of marking system could really make a difference and help us out. What kind of building is that, PJ, that's on fire in the New Haven today?
Thanks for joining us. What kind of building is it?
Yeah. My man. Maybe it's Yale.
This one?
Yes, SFB. That's what street thing comes up on.
All right, we got a
Yeah.
2-story, possible lightweight construction because it doesn't match the neighborhood, and possible exposure problem in the rear. So, the chief's off.
Going to that fire.
I go to the fire too. I want to start with Chief Pauly. Well, first, let me just start off that I'm here in Montgomery County. This is my old stomping ground. This is where I went to college and lived in a firehouse. Sam and I were live-ins together, and my first high-rise fire at the time was in Montgomery County. Was its tallest building, was on the 25th story of Washingtonian Towers at Rio. So I got experience to high-rise fires right off the bat. And as PJ said, you may only have a couple high-rises in your district, but that doesn't mean you're not going to go to a high-rise fire. We had a lot of low high-rises where I lived at Station 31, but that was our only significant high-rise that wasn't sprinklered. And lo and behold, that was our first fire was in that building. So it's kind of nice to be home. And this training academy is unbelievable. They got a racetrack, they got a skid pad, they got classrooms, but they still don't have coffee. But yeah, see, if I was in New Haven back home, I do want to talk to Dave because Dave is doing a great job now with the county and Sam and everybody, and they're reevaluating their high-rise policy. And it's part of the structural policy, but we're going to talk about the high-rise policy. But the way they do their SOPs in Montgomery County, every department out there can learn from. So I want you to explain the process of how you do the high-rise SOP, where you get input from everybody, because I think it puts together a better policy. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, what we do normally with any of the policies that we have is that we have what's called notice and opportunity. Once we get the structure of the policy built, it goes out to the our local 1664 union, the Career Firefighters Union, and it also goes out to the Volunteer Fire Rescue Association, and they both get input into the policy. That provides better buy-in, that everybody has a little hand in getting this policy put together. And then all that information is sent back to us within a time frame. And then once that's done, we go ahead and tweak it if we have to. And then we will end up sending the entire policy out. It's a little time consuming. You don't want to rush to put a policy together and then constantly playing catch up. But the notice and opportunity works pretty well in our favor of putting a policy together. Like I said, it gets buy-in from both sides, and there's no feelings that are going to be hurt or anything like that, because everybody had a chance to look over the policy and improve upon it to suit the needs of both sides, the career and the volunteer side.
What did you call it when it goes out for?
It's notice and opportunity.
Notice and opportunity to comment. So it goes to, this is a combination department in the county.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes to the volunteers and it also goes to the union.
Yes.
And then who do they sit down with after they comment?
Well, they'll end up having the committee. They'll have committees within their own organizations. They'll look it over, and if there is anything that they want to change, or they want a little bit of input, or maybe omit something, they'll put those in writing and then send it back to the actual committee. And at the end of the day, the fire chief takes a look at it, and then we tweak it if we have to, or if we're steadfast on a specific area that we're not going to change, we don't change it. But at the end of the day, everybody has a chance to get their hands on it, take a look at it, make changes if changes need to happen.
And I think that's key, because it's just like if you're going to write an article for fire engineering, the key to great writing is rewriting. So the more eyes that look at it, you're going to pick up some blind spots, because we all have certain blind spots. Somebody has a little bit more expertise in this area. Sam's a radio guy, right? You're going to be talking about radios at FDIC, another big problem in high rises. I want to go to Sam. In Montgomery County, do you have those leaky cables or that go up the standpipe for radio communications?
Yeah.
Are you using stock boxes? What are you using in the county for high-rise fires?
So any new construction, I don't know what the cutoff historically was year-wise, if it's past 10 years or whatever, but our newest version of our building codes, any new construction 25,000 square feet or greater has to, by county law, get a bidirectional amplifier installed, a BDA. And that BDA, it's obviously the BDA itself, and then all the infrastructure required is stretched throughout the building. We've done
when the building goes on fire, does that go down, or is it protected in some way? How do you?
It's on the same redundant power supply that the fire alarm system, emergency lighting, and that kind of stuff is on. So it's a resilient system. It does a tremendous job, but the big problem we're running into is we have a lot of those 25,000 square feet and larger buildings. We have a lot of high rises and a lot of large government buildings, a lot of warehouses and that kind of stuff, where the price point is the prohibitive thing there. It's upwards of $150,000 to install BDA in a building 25,000 square feet. So you're talking a lot of money, and it's tough to get that buy-in. So what we do to remedy that is we have vehicle repeater systems in our battalion chief platforms. When they show up on the scene, like for a big building, the first battalion chief will position where they position. The second arriving battalion chief should go around to the opposite end of the building and turn their VRS on. You get two VRSs going, you can get a pretty good in-building coverage stopgap working. We also have tactical communications with interoperability switches and that kind of thing that we can actually stretch in comms, and that's something I do on the side for the department as well through our National Capital Region Communications Interoperability Group. Lots of words, but basically some radio communication specialists with some equipment where our showstopper is the metro system, but we can stretch into anything that has communications issues. We can stretch in and fix it.
And see, most departments out there don't have those type of resources, and it's really something that needs to be developed throughout the country on a county level or even on a state level, or a department that has high rises like New Haven or Hartford or Bridgeport. That's an asset that we should have. And I think a lot of firefighters are scared by the abbreviations that you're throwing out. And it's not the sexiest thing, but nobody wants to be in a building in a hostile situation where you key the mic and it doesn't get out. So I expect there to be an article about that very thing, because I really think it has. Okay, so the article's already submitted for your class. He's teaching FDIC for the first time this year. So your article's already submitted for FDIC this year?
Oh, yeah.
And that's what it talks about?
Oh, yeah.
Stretching this line
Yes,
in,
sir.
that a truck firefighter could understand when I read it?
Yes. Yes.
Chief Polygoff
Yes.
shaking his head saying,
Yes.
no way.
No way. Just
That's something that's very, very critical that we don't think about until, and just a couple of things that you said, the 2 battalion chiefs on both sides with the repeaters and bringing that line in. We have in New Haven, and I honestly don't know how to use it. I need a class on it. I've been asking. I haven't got one yet. Is we have a stocks box. Do you know what that is? Okay, me either. So we're good. But then when I learn about it, it's some kind of radio communication thing that we can break out for a high rise, and I've yet to have somebody show me how to use it.
It's probably a TBDA, a tactical bidirectional amplifier. Is probably what it is.
See, he's got more.
Yeah, it's a mobile radio with a crossband repeater, so you could bring multiple departments together, and it could crossband them all onto the same frequency.
Yeah, and that interoperability switch. Yeah.
Yes.
And excellent.
And then
PJ knows.
Oh man.
So the next high rise fire we have, we're gonna call in PJ to be the stocks box command.
Isn't that kind of like what we used to do?
Frank, it's far more of an expert on the radio. Could you elaborate for everybody the leaky cable thing? That's more in like economic, because most folks aren't aware of that. I know it's. I first was introduced to it in New York City. Running a cable from the basement to the roof through the core construction buildings.
There's that application.
That's a great thing to have as like a backup, or even on a very basic fundamental level to be able to communicate.
Yeah, we have that stuff in place in our metro system. We have we call them leaky lines or radiating cables. It's basically an antenna that allows comms in and out. We have it for our PSRS, for our public safety radio system, and Metro actually has I think it's a neutral host for wireless providers. So the leaky line works for that kind of stuff too. But we have it in place and operational in our metro system. I'm not sure statistically how many buildings we have it in, but if it's not tied to an existing BDA, we don't have like outside plug-in ports or anything like that. It's either there or it isn't. And if it's not there, we have tactical means to get comms in.
All right, let's move a little bit first to the first due company coming to a high-rise fire, and we'll go with Dave. Now, I know when I was at TENS and I would pull up to a fire, first thing I'm going to do is look at the fire alarm panel, try to figure out, do I got multiple floors, do I got one floor, and decide whether I'm going to take the elevator or not. So we want control over the elevator if it's above the 5th floor. If not, we're walking. We want to check the shaft with the light. We want to return the elevator cars to the lobby. 2 floors below, get out, and then find the apartment line if we have an apartment on fire for a residential fire. I don't just like to look at the numbers. If I can find an apartment door that's open, taking an extra couple seconds will save you minutes. I like to just take a quick peek in the apartment and take a look, because it's going to give you, while different apartments have different layouts, for predominantly everything is right in that same footprint. So taking that quick look, going up and announcing your tax stairs, and that's what we talked about. So why don't you take it as the battalion chief coming in?
One of the things with that first due engine company, they are also responsible, if they are taking the elevator, that they do have to stop halfway up to make sure that the elevator does
Great point.
function. When they stop the 2 floors below, we try to tell them, get a good floor layout like you talked about. Find the apartment that is 2 floors below, identical to that. Then you have an idea of how far your stretch is going to be and which stairwell you're going to utilize. And then from there, once you make it up to the fire floor, You're checking the fire floor to make sure that it's clear. If there's smoke conditions where you can't see down the hallway, you're going to be stretching a charge attack line through the stairwell and back out and down the hallway. What I like to tell people, a little trick of the trade, is to take the time to force the door across from where you're going to attack the fire. That's your refuge area. If there's something were to happen, you pop the door, the window gives out wind-driven fire, you can retreat into that apartment, shut the door, make the call if it can hit it from with a tower ladder, or have another company come in from another apartment, pop a hole in the wall, whatever. But that gives you a little refuge. From firefighter speaking wise, as a battalion chief coming up on the scene, we get a lot of updates on our mobile data computers. We don't have aids in our car, so I'm not reading the computer coming down the road, or I'll end up smashing in the back of somebody driving down the road. So we're relying on that verbal information from our first-in crews, giving us that initial on-scene report, report to fire floor. If they're looking at the alarm panel, if they have a chance, a lot of times the alarm panels are so remote from where they're going to be accessing, they may not get a chance to take a look at the alarm panel. The best reliable, one of the most reliable things we have in a department are the people that are exiting. They're going to tell you right away. There's a lot of smoke up there. They're going to give you an idea of what's going on. But as a battalion chief, once I arrive, I'm going to turn my VRS on, make sure that that's announced that it's active. And if they have a problem getting out, they can use our talk around channel, or they can go to one of our VRS channels and they can communicate directly with the battalion vehicle, and anybody else that's operating on that VRS channel, they can hear us.
And when you're going as the company officer or first due truck or whatever, when you make that call that you're going to take the elevator, look where the stairways are before you get in the elevator, because I've seen that happen. They get off the elevator and then they're not sure which staircase it is. Mm-hmm. And I hate the northeast and south. Most areas, even in Montgomery County, where you have your high rises, is a grid system to something with the streets. You're better off saying what the street side is if you're not sure north and south, because you'll lose me, as Sam lost me trying to come here today. Go a little bit more south. I'm like, okay, well, I'm either going to go the wrong way this way or the right way. And
get a 50-50 shot.
So when we had a fatal high rise a couple years ago, and I believe they used the George Street side stairwell. So it kind of anchors it down a little bit more, so you can determine which stair is going to be used as the tech stair in conjunction with the apartment line, and which is going to be the evacuation stair. I will also say that using quadrants, and also somebody eventually is going to get on, who took a high-rise class, is going to get on the enunciator and tell the civilians what stairwell to use. Just so you know, that will not work. They will not listen to you. You may get some to listen to you, but you're going to have individuals coming down the attack stairways. People are creatures of habit, and they're going to come down. So, Sam, how do we keep those stairways clear?
Well, that's the challenge. In my opinion, as I was an engine officer before I got made to captain, Four Corners, Silver Spring. Shout out to 16C. Love you guys. They invited me to the holiday party this past year. Made me feel real special.
That's just because they wanted somebody to make fun of.
Right? Yeah, it worked real well for them. But the biggest thing is, you're not going, as the first arriving, the first couple of companies on the scene, you're not controlling that. You got to, if you get into a busy stairwell, the advantage is the floor below, getting your line deployed on that floor below so you can stretch it up. If you try to set that line up in a stairwell, it's going to get all boogered up. We had a fire on New Hampshire Avenue. I ended up in the burn center with smoke inhalation injuries last February. And the first due engine company's line got boogered up in the stairwell from exiting people and from other companies operating. My backup, our engine was second arriving. We set our line up on the floor below. My firefighter and backup firefighter did. And I went and helped 12's engine company unfurl their line just as the door kicked open, and I took a shot of smoke before I clicked in, and that's how I ended up down there. But the big thing that I learned from that is, if you have a busy stairwell, set up on that floor below. And that way, when you stretch up, you're stretching up with the line. People are going to get out of your way. But if you're trying to set up your line in a tight stairwell with exiting people,
they're going to be tripping on.
Yeah. And trying to get anybody, as you very well know, if you're talking to them face to face and there's a fire behind them, they're going to hear Charlie Brown teacher anyway. Wah. They're trying to get the HE double toothpicks out. So.
One other thing, just to add a comment to that about stairway evacuation, we learned back in the city, Frank, when we were doing the building evacuations at 70 Pine, for instance. is the pre-planning phase part of this, where you involve when the residents are familiar with what their limitations are and they're trained on a very basic level. And one technique, obviously different high-rises have different stairwells, but just as a hypothetical, we'll give you a high-rise that has 3 stairwells, stairwell 1, 2, and 3. All those that were on odd floors would be directed to odd stairwell 1. And then all the folks on even floors would go to stairwell 2, which you'd bisect the population of that building. And in our case, when we evacuated that building, it was over 6,000 people in that building. Right away, we've just done it in an efficient way. And that building also happened to have a fire tower, which the occupants were directed not to go in. Now, you're always going to have, you know, people that will say, screw this, I'm going there anyway. However, that was the least occupied, or the odds of that would be the least occupied stairwell where firefighting operations could commence, you know, with being least inhibited. But that's just a very simple thing, you know, where just directing people, you're on an odd floor, take the odd stairwell, even floor, take the even one, and they get used to that, you know.
And I think the other key too is in New York and other departments, I think New Haven really wants, in Connecticut, we're going to push to try to get some legislation for this. But they practice, it's kind of like school. They actually have to evacuate their building once a year. Do they do that in Montgomery County?
Only for food on stove calls most of the time.
Yeah, usually they stay in the
They
building
stay in.
like everyone. They stay in. So having something where they have to practice it and have somebody that reviews the plan, if you make it simple enough, yeah, I think that one of the problems is everybody tries to overcomplicate it, and you don't want to overcomplicate it because then people just don't do it.
Also, a lot of these commercial structures, you don't want to have business disruption. That was a big concern in New York City. So one of the things that they would do is made it in a practical sense. You'd have to go down 3 or 4 floors, okay, just so they went through the motion of where to be directed. Okay, we're done, and go back once a year. And then a full building evacuation once every 4 years. Because that's one of the other things, too. When you have a full building evacuation once every 4 years, you have a large turnover in commercial high-rises, you know, with folks getting different jobs or whatever else. But there's always going to be that core group of folks that are there that pass on that information. So it's kind of like the herd leads the herd in a way. And so when you have a full building dump, and actually in some cases, too, in inclement weather, they had partnerships with other high-rises that were local to them so they could evacuate to another high-rise. You know, so if it was in a situation where it was like really, really cold out or really bad weather. But anyway, not to carry on with that, but there's different ways to kind of pre-plan, implement things where you can make things a little bit more efficient, a little easier to run, you know.
Frank, so just to kind of recap where we're at, we're about the halfway point of the show, so I want to make sure that we mention Tenkata. As I said at the start, Tenkata, 7 out of 10 of us in the United States wear turnout gear made by Tenkata Fabrics. And Tenkata is extremely proud to manufacture all their materials here in America. They keep jobs here at home. And don't forget about their station wear. They have a line of station wear that meets the NFPA 1975 standard. They're certified to that standard. And they're just a really good company. They're a good friend of Fire Engineering. They support us in this show. They support FDIC International every year. We'd like to just continue to thank them and encourage you to check them out on Facebook, Twitter, and also their webpage, and that's Tenkata Fabrics. And to kind of recap the few things that I picked up on already, we're talking about the first due tactics. We've talked about, you know, stopping the elevator halfway, making sure the operation of the elevator is still operational appropriate. Stopping 2 floors below, getting the company off 2 floors below, mapping out the floor, creating that refuge area by forcing the apartment door. Now, you said, I have a question there. You want to force the door opposite side of the hallway, or do you want to stay on the same side of the hallway? And then I'd like you to get into maybe talking about getting all the equipment you need to the floor below, and maybe talk a little bit about stretches. So for some of those departments like mine, you know that we have limited experience, what other ways or what are the best ways to get what we need to the floor below, and what are some of the stretches that we may want to look at? And the other thing I want to throw out there while I have a chance to get in there, you know, I've done some work, and Frank, you've done some work with me also on the draft curtains, which are primarily focused and sold as a flow path control device. However, I see another inherent use of those, and that's in stairwells, because we know we're not going to be able to keep, you know, sorry, Mrs. Smith, you got to go the other way. We can't have you come down the stairwell. So that door is going to be opening and closing. And if we could, and again, it's getting another tool to the fire floor, which isn't easy. But if we could deploy curtains, there may be a place on the fire floor for curtains to keep that stairwell in a cleaner environment so we can work and prepare and to make our push and our stretch. I kind of want to throw that out there and kind of see where the conversation goes for the second half here.
All right, I'll start, and then we'll just go right around the horn here. So 2 things. I'll start with what you went with last. Curtains, I think, have a definite application for a high-rise fire, and putting it in the attached staircase where that first due company is stretching. They hook up to the standpipe on the floor below. They're stretching in. It's going to help keep that stairwell clear. So I think that that's positive. A lot of high rises Dave was talking about earlier are pressurized. Other departments are also, which I think has some merit too, is putting the fans up. It's done in LA all the time. It's been done in Maryland for years, of pressurizing the staircase with the positive pressure fans. Just know after the fire, if they're gas fans, you're going to have a CO issue that you need to make sure you mitigate. But for the firefight, it is a practical application. On forcing the door across the hall or adjacent, there's pros and cons with both method. So I would say the circumstances dictate action. It's probably going to depend on the building instruction, the company officer. But one thing I'd like to stress, as the company officer on the engine and a company officer on the truck, when you're stretching down the hall, when it's clear and it looks like fresh air and sunshine and you can stretch, you don't want to just run down the hall and get to the door, because that's what your members are going to do. As the boss, I would slow down. I actually learned this in a bar at FDIC, I think my first year there. And then I said, oh, I should start taking classes because I'll pick up stuff. But instead of running down, and I did use it not on a high rise, but on a tenement fire, is I kind of took my time getting down the hall. I still made it to the door while they were forcing it as the engine boss. And I asked my pipe person, who's a great lieutenant now in the city, soon to be captain. And I said, hey, Joe, how many doors did you pass? And he looked at me like, what? So if you're going down, count the doors, because if you got to go somewhere and that door isn't forced across the hall or next to it, you got to get back to your staircase. So that's something worthwhile doing. But I would say force here and there. It doesn't matter to me. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, going back to, okay, it's counting the doors. Again, one of my last fires, signed at 16 again. I talk about them all the time, by the way. Being at the academy, I love this place. I love my 87 recruits. We're in our 3rd week. Couldn't be any more proud of their progress thus far, and just this whole thing is it's like overwhelming for me to be here. Every day I miss those folks. Miss my Four Corners Company 16 folks. The last decent fire I was on with them, I ended up down a little far down a hallway. Didn't count doors, and ended up in an apartment trying to exit out when things got bad. And I can tell you, it's not a good feeling as somebody who thinks they have their stuff together. Just goes to show you, the fire can humble you and take you away pretty quick. Had I counted doors, I probably wouldn't have been in that situation. Thankfully, I was able to keep calm, do a good coordinated search and get out before I got jammed up. But counting doors is huge, huge.
A couple of things when it comes to the stairwells. What we have in place now, what will be in place with our new high-rise policy, is that all the stairwells will be pressurized, even if they are meet the new code, which are automatically pressurized within the building. We're going to be putting our fans in. We're getting away from gas-powered fans. A lot of the battery-operated fans now are putting out almost as much CFM as the gas-powered fans. The trade-off is you're not getting that buildup of carbon monoxide in the stairwells. So we are pressurizing all the stairwells, and we're running 3 truck companies on our high-rise fires, and that 30 truck company is ensuring that those stairwells are being pressurized. When it comes to a refuge area, again, it's your personal preference. One of the very first high-rise fires I ever ran when I got hired in Montgomery County, I was hired in Silver Spring, which is a big old high-rise district in downtown Silver Spring on the DC line. One of the very first fires I had was a high-rise fire, and we actually had to pull a lady out of the apartment. We forced the door across the hallway and took her in there, and the guy riding forth on the engine tended to her. She was burned, some smoke inhalation, went in and put the fire out. The decision was made, instead of dragging her down the dirty hallway, trying to make it back towards the door, down the stairs or to the elevator. We didn't have that fireman service. We leave her in there. We'll tend to her as we need to. Once the stairwell got cleared up, we actually evacuated her out.
Did she live?
Yeah, she did live.
Tremendous.
Well,
Great job.
That was 1400 Elizabeth's house.
Great
Elizabeth's
job.
house.
Wow.
But we ran a lot of high-rise fires in downtown Silver Spring, and I learned a lot. And then when I got promoted to lieutenant, we were in Bethesda, and Bethesda is like mini Manhattan, basically. A lot of old high-rises that aren't sprinklered, and learned a lot from there. The trade-off was more people had money in Bethesda than they did in Silver Spring, so we didn't burn as much. But we did learn a lot of lessons when it came to pushing smoke, keeping stairwells clear, evacuating the occupants. And we were only running three-man engine companies, three-man trucks at the time as well. So keeping that stairwell clear, having that plan, even if you have to stretch through the door, if you have that stairwell pressurized, and if it's a tall stairwell or a tall high-rise, you can supplement with fans on upper floors. Now with their battery-operated fans, there's no issue with running these battery-operated fans to supplement what's below to keep the pressure in those stairwells. Providing you don't have a wind-driven fire, you shouldn't have a problem getting those stairwells. Keep them clean. So if you do have people that are evacuating out your attack stairwell, you're not going to run into those smoke conditions.
What's been your experience with dealing with the building supervisor to use the ventilation system to either shut it off to the fire floor or put it to exhaust? Because I've talked to some building supervisors, and unless you get the right building supervisor, they look at you like they have absolutely no clue. And that's where I think Kevin's information card could possibly be very helpful, is having command contact the right person, how to control those systems. What's your experience with that?
What we're running into now is the days of the superintendent living in the building are gone. Those guys are living off site. They're working 9 to 5. You get a fire at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you try to call, you get the answering machine. So the systems that are operating on the floor, they're going to be left to do what they're going to do. A lot of the older buildings really never ran into a problem with that. Luckily, we haven't had a lot of cases of wind-driven fires. We don't have the high-rises that we do have in Montgomery County are nowhere near the size of what they have up in New York and Boston and things like that. I think our tallest high-rise at the time was the Washingtonian. Now the new one that we have, I think, is by a few floors taller than the one at Washingtonian. It has maybe 27 stories. You know, the guys in New York are laughing at that because they're dealing with 60 and 80-story high-rises.
Anything over 5 floors.
Right.
Access problem, it's
Sure,
a high rise.
sure.
So, I mean,
But as when it comes to the wind issues, we really haven't run into that a lot. But we've always pressurized our stairwells. We've always had the companies pressurizing the stairwells, and the guys that work in those districts are really familiar with the buildings. But again, it's hit or miss getting that building engineer to be there to shut systems down and whatnot. Like I said, 2 o'clock in the morning, they're non-existent. They don't live in the buildings anymore. It's not like it used to be.
And PJ was asking about logistics, about getting stuff to the floor. Now, in lobby control, I know that the 5th engine in Montgomery County used to, I know you guys are changing it up because you get a lot of chiefs on these calls, but it used to be when I was here, it was the 5th engine was responsible for lobby control. Check the ventilation system, check the fire pump, make sure the fire pump was operating appropriately, take control of the elevators, start moving stuff to the floor. Now you're going to use more chief officers. Are you still going to look to give that chief officer who's in charge of the lobby a company to ensure if we got a firefight on a high floor that they're going to be running bottles and running equipment up to the floor?
Yeah, he's going to make that initial call. If he needs manpower, if he needs another company of people, we're going to give him that. When it comes to shuffling equipment up there, we stage our 2 floors below is going to be the staging area. 1 floor below is going to be our rapid intervention company. So those guys got the floor to themselves.
And let me just cut you off there because I think it's important. We had a fatal high-rise fire in New Haven. I responded from home, and I got to the lobby, and the RIT team was in the lobby, and the fire was on the 13th floor. And that's why the policy for a high-rise is so important, because it's just like you got to have a policy for a commercial building, because if it's not your bread and butter that you do every day, and we have a whole bunch of high-rises, it's just not in the muscle memory of, oh, I need to make sure. It seems like common sense, but when you're right there at the fire and everything else is going on and you got a report of people trapped, confirmed, and everybody's working, sometimes in critical, important things get left off. So I think that's why the policy's clear. And I like what you said, you put your rapid intervention team on the floor below, they're ready to go. And they're ready to go, and make sure they have a defibrillator with them. is one of the other things, because
Yeah.
you're looking at a high stress firefighting area, and they may not be the rapid intervention team for the fire. They may be the rapid intervention team when a guy has a heart attack when they're overhauling. So something that should be put in that Stokes basket. I didn't mean to cut you
That's
off,
okay.
but I think it's a valid point, because good departments, great departments miss some things, and that's where that policy can cover some blind spots. When the guys are studying for promotional, or the girls are studying for promotional exam, they're doing the drill. They kind of get all those little silly things marked off. You know, it's like the guy who pulls up to the commercial fire and pulls an inch of your quarter line. No, pull the 2.5 no matter what. There's certain things that need to take place, and then we can manipulate them down from there.
And that's one of the reasons why we are redoing our policy for firefighting. It was our original safe structural firefighting policy was written for the bread and butter fire, and we were trying to cookie cutter that into a commercial, to a garden apartment, to a house,
Doesn't work.
to a high rise. It doesn't work. So a lot of things get left off. So this is going to spell it out a little bit more. But yeah, we would shuffle equipment once. Some of our high rises that have the freight elevators that can tremendous amount of equipment, a lot of weight, we can start shuffling that up, and they're not tied into the fireman's service.
Right.
We're not using that right away. The guys are taking in whatever they need on their backs. They're taking in their standpipe packs. They're taking in their irons. They're taking in their hooks, SCBAs. If they have to carry extra bottles, they're carrying that in. Rapid intervention companies bringing in all their stuff. So you're going to start clogging up these elevators pretty quick. So we need to make sure that you get off, get the elevator back down. Once that equipment is moved into place, and you're talking 5-inch companies and 2 truck companies moving in right away. Once that fire is knocked, then we can start shuffling equipment up with these freight elevators, and you can move a tremendous amount of equipment with that. And they're not tied into fireman's service, so they'll go up and down when you need it. As long as you can get it unlocked.
Two tactics here that's real important is, it may not be the first 2-inch company. It may be that lobby control engine company or the chief when they're decided how to get up there. But somebody's got to search the freight elevator, because Democracy Boulevard in Montgomery County, when I was down here, a security guard took the freight elevator to go up and check on the penthouse fire on the roof. He got overcome with smoke and he died in the elevator. And I don't believe the elevator was searched quickly, because it wasn't, I don't think anybody was even thinking that at the time. So if you have a freight elevator, you just can't, if you say you decide not to use it, someone's still got to search every single elevator's got to be searched. So I thought that was pretty good.
Just to add to that freight elevator thing, Frank, and that's why it's so important to understand what buildings have what, because a freight elevator on many different fronts, as the chief indicated, it's not tied into the fire alarm system, so you can freely operate it. The other thing is there's no blind shaft in a freight elevator. You know, you can go from the basement of the basement of the basement all the way to the top in a freight elevator. Also capacity, it has the maximum capacity compared to the elevator that the general pop uses to get up and down. And also, the freight elevator is typically in a secure, redundantly secure location. It's not going to open up right on the fire floor. It's typically behind like another room, like almost like core construction. So you have a redundancy there of safety, because say if you did miss and you went to the wrong floor, a lot of times that freight elevator is going to be in a location that's not, there's going to be another door to go through where it's secure. And the other thing too, easy access freight elevators. Well, they're bringing office furniture in and out of there. Freight elevators are located at easy access to inside the building where a truck can back up. And so that's where a pre-plan, and you have, say, your 4th due engine company or your RIT, oh, we know we're going to that freight elevator right away, and we're going to put that stuff up there and start getting stuff in position. We're not going to be in the way of anybody else. And that would, by default, take care of what that unfortunate incident with that security guard was, lifeless in that elevator.
Yeah,
right away, they know that.
Relatively quick, but if the first 2 engine company isn't chasing around elevators to search it, it's going to be a later arriving company, and that means seconds. So I'm not giving a knock on the company. I'm saying, they searched it at the appropriate time, but someone's got to search it. Another tactical tip is, if it's a low high rise, which most of our departments and most of the country have, eventually you're going to be on the roof. And one of the most important things besides walking the rim is the report from the roof. Make sure you're not just reporting what you see, but sometimes what you don't see is critical information. For example, if you show up to the job and you got smoke and fire blowing out the window, and by the time you get up to the roof and you walk the rim and they haven't put out the fire yet and there's no more smoke or fire blowing out, that's a reportable action thing that the chief needs to know about. And, you know, New Haven, we're on the ocean, so you can have a wind-driven fire in a 2.5 foot on the water. We've seen it where it's trapped firefighters. So depending on where you are, you can have a wind-driven fire on any floor, but especially above 5 or 6 floors. Sam, jump in here.
Yeah, no, you know, with everything you talk about, getting things up there, you know, obviously extra cylinders, you know, additional hose lines, you know, anything consumable that we might be using, but certainly additional equipment for extensive overhaul fire operations. I'm always, at least my experience here in Montgomery County has been ensuring having the tactical resilience among the people. Using a PJ word there. I think I first tactical resilience. So yeah, having the tactical resilience, or having, you know, to help assist that first engine company, that first company get that line on the fire. I've seen it where we've had special service, you know, truck squads, second engines trying to set their backup line, end up hindering the deployment of the first line.
Get the first line.
The first line, absolutely. The first line, in my opinion, should be flowing water before anybody does anything else other than life safety. If that first line is not in service and flowing water, everybody on that fire ground should be helping to get that thing in service. And sometimes it takes that, because you're getting bum rushed by evacuating civilians. You have tight stairwells. If the stairwell is not pressurized, if it gets charged with smoke, you've got an IDLH and you can't see anything. So you're on air. It really, you think about, you know, the little things end up being big things. If that first line is not in service, it creates a lot of heartache and headache on the fire ground for sure. And
Let's talk numbers. You know, Frank shows up with a fair share of personnel on the first 2 companies and the first alarm assignment. I would assume down in Maryland, you got a very fair share of you know, numbers of firefighters showing up on that first 2 assignment. Completely opposite for what I'm in, you know, what I'm getting myself into. So I clearly know if I'm running to a high rise and there's even a report of a fire, I'm calling for help. I'm calling for mutual aid. I'm calling for a second alarm, which is from another department. But what type of numbers should the incident commanders of small departments be looking to immediately have on their scene? And now let's not talk about a wind-driven fire. Let's not talk about a fire that involves multiple floors or multiple apartments. We're talking one good apartment fire on the 10th or 11th floor. What type of numbers would you want on scene initially?
You're talking people or apparatus, or both?
People.
I would look at, you know, obviously the minimum they're talking about now in the country is 4. We're fortunate enough, we're built out. We're like, I think all but 4 or 5 engine companies in our county are 4-person fire engines. You're looking at your redundancy. So you want to have an engine company and then a backup for the fire floor, and an engine company and a backup for the floor above. Same for the truck company to the fire floor, truck company to the floor above. In our county, we're 3-person trucks, 4-person engines. So, and then you're getting the rescue squad, which can be anywhere from 3 during the normal business hours to where when the volunteers come in the evening, all the way up to 6. So you're looking at, and then plus 2 on the ambulance if they are firefighting qualified. You know, you're looking anywhere between, you know, we get 5 on the high rise. So you're talking about another 4. So yeah, you're looking about anywhere between 30 to 35 people initially. My experience is if the companies go on the scene of a high rise with a significant amount of fire showing, I'm thinking of pulling a second alarm right away anyway, because by the time you plan for the fireman service is not working and the fire's on the 12th floor. In our county, if the fireman service doesn't work, you're taking the stairs. You've already wiped out 2 engine companies just trying to get stuff up there. You're going to have equipment and people going up there to relieve those guys right away. With all things being equal, second alarm is going to allow those companies that are pulling the hose lines down the hallways, if you're making rescues, getting the fire out. Once the fire is knocked and the overhaul, you're going to have to put the next 2 companies in there to finish up the overhaul job, ventilation, and whatnot. So initially, you're looking at about 30 to 35 people. You know, ideally, obviously, other places in the country, it's, you know, you're looking at the 2-person engine company that are rolling up.
They should just take the bus instead of the engine. The fact of the matter is, he's 100% right. you got to have about 35 to 40 people if you're going to safely, efficiently, and effectively mitigate a fire, a room and contents fire in an occupied high rise. It's a fact. There's no way you can do it right with less people. In a smaller town, hey guys, the badge, it should say not officer, it should say logistics. And it's about the courage of picking up the radio, as I always say. You know, that's where the leadership comes in. If you know that there's no way that you could stand in a court of law and justify why you lost one of your guys because you showed up with 12 or 15 people, what you pull up to a house fire with, to a working high-rise fire, I mean, get on the radio and call for a full box alarm for your neighboring city and let them tell you no. But company officers don't not call for help. Everybody wants to go to your fire. You can always return people, but you know, a full box alarm assignment in New Haven, you're getting, by the time you get all the extra other people coming in, you got 35 people there, close to 40 people on one box alarm. These smaller departments that they're not calling mutual aid right off the bat makes no sense to me. It's an accident waiting to happen. When you have departments like Philadelphia losing 3 people in a high-rise fire, New York losing guys in a high-rise fire. These are departments where we look at our line of duty deaths in high-rise, they have proper staffing. And they're still losing guys in high-rise fires or women in high-rise fires, and it's not a common fire. No department's going to high-rise fires every day, even New York City. So the fact is, it's a high-risk, low-frequency thing, and you don't want to start off with your back against the wall. You want to start off with having the personnel, because just getting the stuff up there is complicated. And then if you have a rescue or you lose water, now you're talking about a whole other problem. My brother was on the Meridian Tower fire where they lost the sprinkler system, and they stretched supply line up the stairwells. I mean, all the way up the stairwells. You think how many companies that would. Now, that was an extremely tall building, but every department out there seems to have a 5, 6. What's the tallest building in East Haven, PJ?
The most of our buildings are 4-story, what we consider high-rise, but we do have one 11-story elderly housing, and that's a significant high hazard for us. You know, not necessarily the fire hazard, just the people hazard alone. You know, we can get a pot on the stove or a small can job fire, but the smoke condition is going to create some significant issues because of the population that's in the building alone, let alone if we have a significant room of content fire.
If you take a look at, you know, when you're running any fire and you don't have the manpower, and you know you don't have the manpower, you're starting to check off jobs that you just can't do right now, and things are going to slip through the cracks. And when it comes to high-rise fire, you know, what are you not going to do? Well, I might not be able to do ventilation because I got to get a hose line down the hallway. I can't see down the hallway to find out where the fire is. I might not be able to do forcible entry because I've got a hand line in my hand, so now I can't force. So there's jobs that aren't going to get done. So you have to have that manpower. And again, you're going to have a good mutual aid agreement or automatic aid agreement with your surrounding companies if the companies are running short. We're fortunate, you know, on the East Coast for the most part with the combination systems and the career systems. But you know, when you start heading west, and even in the rural South, you're talking one guy, and hopefully the rest of the people are showing up in their cars. Jobs aren't going to get done, and that's where it gets dangerous.
And what happens is a lot of where it's all volunteer departments, and I come from the volunteer system, so I love the volunteer system, but they look at how many people you put on scene by the end of the fire. No, it's how many people you can put on scene at the beginning of the fire is really the benchmark, not how many people show up later. You got to pre-plan, and that's where Kevin comes in with these emergency action plans. You got to pre-plan. The citizens got to pre-plan. The fire department's got to pre-plan, and we need to work together, get member buy-in, union buy-in to redo your SOPs for high-rise policies. And if you only have 1 or 2 high-rises in your district, which a lot of departments have in the country, there's no excuse that you don't have a policy and don't have built in a way to get the personnel there. If you don't, you're already failing. You know, the high-rise battle is fought before the fire, not at the fire.
Right. Absolutely.
We're hitting the witching hour right here, aren't we? Here.
Yes, we are.
Do you want to sign us off with a note?
Why don't we just go around real quick? We'll give Kevin a chance to type a few loose ends. I know that there's a few things he wanted to say here. We'll go around the room. We'll give another shout out to our sponsor, hit a few of the FDIC points, and then we'll let you close it out as always, Frank.
All right, fair enough. Go,
Yeah.
Kevin.
I mean, for the most part, in the short amount of time that we have, I think we've covered a lot. So just in summary, key thing, as the chief indicated, the use of the freight elevators. That's not something that maybe is abundantly known by folks. That's something to consider, strongly consider, and be aware of those things. You know, other than that, it just really just summarize how important it really is to pre-plan. Just to throw one extra thing in there on the hop, if you know, you don't have access to any kind of fancy apps or anything, Google Maps is really key. Just type in the address in quick. It gives you a photo of the building instantly. You can actually walk down the street virtually. So if you're an officer and you're bringing it to a location, you could actually pre-plan that building instantly with Google Maps and see where a standpipe connection is, what street. Maybe it's a one-way. You could literally walk around the building. Depending how far it is. But anyway, that's just on the hop doing something. But I'm going to hand it off to PJ. I think we covered a lot. I'm honored to talk with you folks. And Frank, thanks again for inviting me. And all yours, PJ.
All right, Frank. So why don't we go around the room there and let everybody have some input. And I'd like to hear from your partner behind you there, too. See if Nick has any input. See if he's learned anything today.
But what do you call it? He was teaching Kevin Riley, and they weren't even in the same room, because when New Haven had their work and fire came out, Nicholas, without like 1 second, handed me Google Maps with a picture of the house. So here, this is the house. So
Okay.
you guys must be talking.
Showed me, okay?
I do one thing we didn't mention is that we saw at 70 Pine, and then I'll kick it around and we'll end. Was they had stair chairs set up for
Ambulatory, yeah.
population. So,
Yeah.
for example, if we had Bobby James, who's in a wheelchair right now, shout out, we got
RJ.
hurt playing football, and he's on the floor. There's got to be some contingency plan of, is there a way to get them to an area of refuge? And that's something that the fire department should know about. But let's go with Dave. RJ, we hope you recover. We hope you're feeling better. Go ahead, Chief.
Again, you know, what we've all talked about is, you know, if you have these high rises, especially if you only have one or two, like Frank said, there's no reason why you shouldn't have something built in place. Hey, when we run this place, this is what we're going to do. When you get into, you know, into an urban environment where you have hundreds of high rises, you're going to have that blanket policy. But there's really no excuse to get out there and learn those buildings, especially when it's cold outside or when it's hot outside. You know, you're in a heated or an air conditioned building. Walk around, look where all the key areas are that you're going to need when that place is on fire. Just a real quick, if anybody that's listening, if they want some more information or they have some questions about our policy in Montgomery County, you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook. Find me in the fire engineering community. Drop me a line, and I'll give you whatever information I have. Free of charge, I promise.
We were looking forward to getting recruit class 41 through their fire 1 and 2 training. We're in their 3rd week, so we have some in half the groups in fire training right now, and we have a great high-rise prop here, a concrete 5-story building that has fire blast props in it, so we can actually burn in this building and train in this building. I'm looking forward to putting them through the paces. They'll be the first recruit class to actually use this building, so we're looking forward to hopefully the policy will be out. We do a big policy review with them towards the end of the program. So we're hoping that will be out in time for us to get that, get it partially digested by them, at least as new firefighters, while we're training in this high-rise prop to really hit home how important it is to be on point when we're doing these high-rise fires. I wanted to thank Chief Adam Jones for letting us do this today. Let me step out for a few minutes from the recruit class. Thank my adjuncts and my Lieutenant Adam Nichols and Bob Foss. I got 2 lieutenants in the office that are doing a tremendous job. Thank Battalion Chief Kelvin Thomas as well for granting me the bye to come in and talk with you all today. And thank Chief Michael Clemens, who retired from here, but he made sure that we had this stuff in place. Chief Clemens, you knocked this one out of the park, and I promise you we're going to do right by this entire facility, and certainly the high-rise prop. We're looking forward to it.
Nicholas?
Oh, this is pretty good for the first time ever sitting here. Yeah.
Oh,
Pretty
man.
good.
All right, and
You sat there pretty good, Nick.
without a doubt, I'd like to thank Chief Alston for coming on our first Google Hangout. We do it from the union office once every month as part of our health and safety initiative for our union members and for the country fire engineering. Thank Tinkata, and really proud to be back here in Montgomery County, Maryland. I learned a lot here. I was humbled here. I learned how much I didn't know when I first got here, it was at the point where when you first start off, you think you know everything. But Montgomery County, Maryland taught me a lot, and it's one of the premier fire departments. And this training academy is unbelievable. It's huge. We showed up. I wasn't sure if it was a prison or a training academy, but it was very fitting either way. But no, I'm proud to be here in Montgomery County. I'd like to thank Chief of Department, Chief of Training, Sam Belani, fellow living, and Chief Polikoff. Hope to see everybody at FDIC. Thanks, Tinkata, and thank you, PJ Norwood.
Oh, thanks, guys. We appreciate it. Hope everybody had a great holiday. And again, we thank Tinkata Fabrics for supporting and sponsoring this Google Hangout each and every month, live here from New Haven, Connecticut. Without them, 7 out of 10 of us are wearing their gear. So next time you're speccing your fire turnout gear, remember, it's not about color. It's not about price. It's about what's going to protect you the best. And 7 out of 10 of us is wearing a Tinkata fabric. So reach out to Tinkata Fabrics and let them help you perform a risk assessment to see what you truly need to make sure that you're wearing the best manufactured fabrics to protect you and your membership. Don't forget the ISFSI George D. Post Instructor of the Year Award, deadline December 31st. The Courage and Valor deadline for that nomination, January 7th. Get those nominations done, and I look forward to seeing everybody next month and down the road at FDIC International 2017. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a great afternoon and Happy New Year.
See you at FDIC. See you on Twitter.
Take care, guys.